All right.
Hey gang, everybody, it's Ruben. Welcome back to Chatting With. I am super thrilled for my current guest, Anthony Cappelletti, who does quite a bit of things. He's a podcaster. He runs a charity foundation. Anthony, what's going on? How are you doing, my friend?
Excellent. Excellent. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I guess to set it up, right? So let me just start by at least revealing the podcast. You run a podcast called Two Dudes, Three Legs.
Yes,
And that is because you are actually an amputee.
correct. I've been an amputee since August 8th, 2020. And that has been such a life-changing event for me.
Yeah,
And I
so you survived a motorcycle accident, right?
correct. And survived is the key word there. It was pretty bad. So that motorcycle accident is the whole reason for the podcast and the whole reason I do the work in the amputee community that I do. But let me start my story from the beginning. It was
Yeah, break it down. We want to hear your origin story, Tony.
it was a fun summer night, August 8th, 2020. I was out riding all day with my brothers, and I was riding home from dinner that night, one night on a windy road, and I had misjudged a turn, and I was going a little too fast. And by the time I realized that I wasn't on a straightaway and that I was at a 90-degree turn, I was in the air. I was doing front flips through the air. My brother was behind me on his motorcycle, and he told me that as soon as I crashed, he thought I was dead immediately. But I believe in a higher power and that someone or something was there to save me that day. And I remember it vividly. I crashed a motorcycle. I went flying through the air. I landed, and I went like this, and I checked, and I felt, and I was like, "Oh, well, I'm fine. I'm okay." And then I went to stand up, and I looked down, and my foot was completely mangled.
Wait, so you're saying you landed after a crazy accident like that and you weren't feeling any pain? The adrenaline level must have been off the chain.
Oh yeah, I was definitely in shock. I didn't feel anything. I had no idea that anything had even happened. I looked down and I could see the bottom of my foot. I remember it was on the side of my leg, folded up. There was no shoe on it. And I pretty much figured at that point, yeah, that's going to go. So my brother proceeded to lay me down because I was trying to stand up. He tourniqueted my leg. Ambulance was there within 7 minutes. Within about 20 minutes, I was in a helicopter. And then within an hour, I was at Westchester Medical, where I had a great team of people taking care of me.
So you and your brother were both riding the motorcycles, I guess.
Correct.
So, but but for him to just be like that aware, it sounded like he remained cool. I mean, you're in shock, so we can understand you being cool, but that your brother wasn't freaking out, knew how to put on a tourniquet. I would
Oh
imagine
yeah.
call 911, all the things, right? That had to, I mean, that was right there, probably the biggest lifesavers having your
Oh
brother on
yeah.
your side, right?
He absolutely saved my life. Otherwise, I don't think I would be here today. I was losing blood at a rapid pace. And I certainly don't think I would have taken the right steps because that shock would have worn off and I probably would have panicked. But um, he certainly saved my life. And that was the beginning of, I like to think that I was reborn that day because everything in my life shifted after that point. I remember waking up in the hospital and thinking, okay, this is my new life. Now, I've always been able to take negative things and turn them into positives. Uh, so I knew that it wasn't going to defeat me, pun intended. um, so what happened next is what really changed my life in a big way was, I was in the hospital for a half a month and I just had an incredible outpour of support for me. My brother started to GoFundMe. A lot of people donated to it, which helped me get through financially. But what it really did for me was show me how many people were willing to reach out in my time of need. And I had no clue how many people I had in my corner until that day, until this happened to me. But a ton of people reached out. And I mean, I was getting a ton of letters in the mail. And so many people reached out, and that really changed me in a big way. I was extremely grateful for what everyone had done for me. And so I decided to go back to not living my normal life, but living a better life and being more grateful for everything that I have. Obviously, you know, the saying, you never know what you have until it's gone. Well, I almost lost everything. And so now I treat every day that way. I don't take anything for granted anymore. And what that's done for me is it hasn't only helped me position my life in a better way, but I have begun, you know, so fast forward a little bit, I get back to working. I'm working in a field that I appreciate more. I actually sell solar, which, you know, it's just a great job. I help people
Solar
save.
panels you're talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
I help people save money. Whereas before I was kind of working with a tool belt, or working at a boat shop and just not out in the field working with people, which is where I believe that I belong. So I began working this awesome job. I met a best friend of mine now. His name is Zach Dingy, and the two of us decided, you know, hey, let's start a podcast and try to do something good with it. So we began the Two Dudes, Three Legs podcast. We thought that was a funny name. And
Yeah, so I was actually gonna ask you that. So it's an interesting segue. But before we get to the segue to the podcast birth and your relationship with your partner Zach, so I wanted to just backtrack a second because you said something quite interesting, Tony, that you had a support system pretty much from jump. I mean, that had to have been like not only super amazing for you, but right, that you talk to fellow amputee survivors. I don't, so maybe help me out. I don't know what's the right terminology, because like one of my aunts, for example, she's a cancer survivor, so I'll add that word. I don't know if we say that for amputees, but I guess with other amputees, the lack of a support system kind of leads to a long depressive state. And I guess you kind of short circuited that, right?
big time, big time. And my support system actually, you know, it wasn't even other amputees or survivors per se. It was just the people that I had in my close circle that I always knew loved me, but I didn't know how much. And when it was their time to show it, they really showed up for me, if that makes sense.
Totally. So because you were feeling the love, is that what helped inspire you to get this podcast going? Was that so? Like, how did the brainchild kind of happen? Like, what made you guys just say, you know what, this is a good thing, let's get this out there?
Yeah, so I felt that my story was one that should be shared, right? You know, again, it changed my mindset completely to it, the attitude of gratitude for everything, right? I'm now completely grateful for everything that I have in my life. And within just 2 years of adopting this new attitude, I have found how it can serve you in a huge way, right? First of all, I'm happier immediately right off the bat. Why? Because I take time to appreciate everything I have. You know, I make silly, I'll give you an example. A silly thing I do every day is when I get in my beautiful truck that I can now afford because I do great work at my awesome job. I don't just get in my truck and go to work. I appreciate my truck. I get in and I'm so happy I have a beautiful truck to get in and go to work. And I'm grateful for my job. And when you show gratitude for everything, the universe just repays you. And it's the most powerful thing I've found as a tool in this universe for, like, you know, call it manifesting or reaching out to your higher power, whatever it is. Gratitude is the most powerful tool you have. And that's been my message. So once I found that I have a message, I decided, hey, I should probably have a platform for this. And it ties in with my story about my survivalship through my accident. But it's all about my attitude of gratitude, and it's become about paying it forward.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. Of course, you know, I'm a Christian, so I absolutely believe that, you know, what helps me with spreading the love that I'm called to ask is first in being just grateful for all that I have, right? Starting with me being saved by Christ. So I can totally relate to that message for sure. Now, let's talk a little bit about prosthetics, though, because I guess right after you have to lose the leg, the next step is, you know, how do you get back on your feet, so to speak? So
Yeah.
No pun intended. But like first there's just like a process, right? Because I've seen some of your other videos that you have on your own channel, Tony, and I guess there's like a shrinkage process, right? So you kind of have to go through this long process just for a regular prosthetic to be comfortable, right?
Absolutely. So in short, to give you the experience that almost every amputee has, whether it's a traumatic accident or they need to get their limb removed for any other reason, is of course, after a surgery, you're going to experience inflammation, right? So they're trying to build a socket, which is essentially a cup that your leg is going to go into. So when you first get a surgery, it's very inflamed, very large. So you have to wait a little while. Then they'll begin creating a socket for you after, I don't know, for some people it's a few months, for some people it could be half a year, but they'll begin building a socket for you. But as a new amputee, and I don't mean new as in a couple months, I'm still a new amputee because it's only been, actually we're coming up on 3 years now, but there's still shrinkage going on. So the inflammation from the surgery has all gone down and now everything is regulated, but there's still shrinkage going on. So as I receive a socket that fits me perfectly in, let's say, August 2021, a year after the accident, it's going to fit me perfectly, but my leg is going to continue to shrink. Reason is it's now got a new purpose. It's being stuffed into a socket, and I'll call it my residual limb. Some people just call it their nub, which is funny. But that is continually shrinking, right? There's still muscle in there that is atrophying. There's, whatever else there is in their tissue that is just naturally atrophying over time. So what you need to do is you need to continue to size down and get different sockets over time. And I believe after about 5-6 years, my leg is going to reach a point where it's going to stay a consistent size and shape. So does that answer?
Yeah. And so you all these constant fittings and resizing and all of that.
Yeah,
So
I've had to get a new socket probably once every 8 months.
so that just that alone, it has to make the transition for getting used to a prosthetic, I'd imagine, incredibly long, just that alone, correct?
Yeah, it's like, I get one that's fitting perfect and it feels great and I'm walking around, and then somehow 3 months later it doesn't fit anymore and it feels like a little bit of a regression when you think you're moving forward, but it's all part of the process. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And
Okay,
that's
so that would make the regular prosthetic that I would imagine most amputees probably can get covered through their insurance, good to go or whatever. But like just walking is going to be uncomfortable. I would imagine what you're describing to me almost sounds like if you're wearing a shoe that fits and all of a sudden it's 2 sizes too big for you, kind of thing, right? So constantly readjusting that. So just walking's got to be hard. Forget about doing any type of athletic thing, which means, right, we've got to segue now to this other prosthetic that you are specifically using as well, and partnering with a company called Levitate, which is the blade prosthetic. So tell us a little bit about this bad boy.
So let's start from square one. So I'll give you a little bit of the backstory of it. So I became an amputee, obviously, and then I went to one of my fittings for a socket and they brought a Levitate rep in. Now, Levitate is a different kind of leg. It's for sports, right? It doesn't even have a foot on it. And like you would typically see at the bottom of a prosthesis has a foot like this. And I wish I had my Levitate blade for you. I do not, but it's literally just a blade with a pad on the bottom. And that's used for sports, for running, right? So you can get around a lot quicker. So a gentleman came and fitted me for one. I tried it on and I was running for the first time in 2 years immediately. It was incredible. So I started, making videos about it on the podcast. And then all of a sudden I got the attention of the founder of Levitate, whose name is Lasse Madsen. He is a great friend of mine. We're buddies now. He lives in Denmark, which is where the company is based out of. But we became friends. I started showing up to all of his test runs. He holds these events where he will invite amputees from all around the world to come meet. He's had one in Texas, Denver, Jersey. We did one in Boston. I've been to many of them. And he invites amputees to come in and try the blades on. Now, the difference between his company and any other prosthetic blade company is that he sells direct to consumer. So we were just talking about how prosthetics, they're available to you through your insurance. Well, an insurance company will not pay for a sports prosthesis, which is terrible. For someone like me to go and run, I have to purchase a blade leg. And it's typically very expensive if you do that. But through Levitate, it's only $2,000 for a blade leg, which might sound like a lot, but if you look at other blade legs, the markup, because it goes through insurance, can be up to $15,000. So I learned about his company and I was like, wow, that's something I can really get behind. And then, like an act of God, all of a sudden, someone reached out to me through a nonprofit company and said, hey, do you want to start doing nonprofit work? You have a podcast, a platform to speak from where you can raise money. And so I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. So I became an ambassador for a nonprofit. The nonprofit I'm working for right now is called Less Leg, More Heart. And the first round of investors that I found, when I started doing my charitable work, we'll say, I told a bunch of my network of people that, hey, I'm working with this nonprofit. I want to raise money specifically to buy these cost-effective blade legs and give them away to amputees who need them. The first 2 days I was doing it, I think we raised $18,000 in like 48 hours, which was great. So then what I began doing was I would go to the Levitate test runs and I would bring these blade legs that were already prepaid for, and I would hand them out to people. And you can see all of that on my podcast, Two Dudes, Three Legs, and on our YouTube channel. I like to surprise the people with the blade legs.
I know that's so cool. I watched a couple of those and my goodness, because people want to be active, especially someone like yourself who's really young in life, and you're down a leg. You don't just want to walk again. You want to be active and do active things, right? People love to be active. I mean, there's athleticism, but there's also just jogging or running or chasing your dog around the park, like all these kinds of things that can happen with the blade that I guess really is not practical with the regular prosthetic. So you're really helping change lives, Tony. I think that's super cool. Like I saw the story that you did with the double amputee. That one brought me to tears because her story was just so heart-wrenching. She was a very competitive athlete and then lost not one but two legs, and you gave her two blades, bro. My goodness.
Yeah, we flew all the way out to Denver to hand deliver them.
Yeah, so this has got to have you meeting really interesting people and getting a chance to touch their lives, because it's really sad that they're not covering, an athletic style prosthetic. So how has meeting people like this and being able to change lives affected you?
Oh man, it's just given me much more worldly experience and helped me mature as a person and become a better person in almost every way. Everywhere I go and everywhere this path takes me, I just meet incredible people and I learn a lot more about the world. And in turn, I learn more about myself. It's been an incredible journey. And I found that I can have a large and lasting effect on other people. And so I'm going to continue to do that. I mean, I have projects in place right now and things in play where I'm going to continue to give away blade legs. But we have somebody in mind who I want to give another blade leg to. And we're going to make this whole big ordeal about it. And I believe as my message gets out, people will be able to donate more to my cause, which again is Less Leg, More Heart. If you go to my Instagram, you can donate directly to my page. My Instagram is at Anthony Cappelletti.
Yes, definitely tell us about how people can help donate, can help you raise more money. Just tell us how that
Yeah,
works.
it's as simple as that. You just visit the donation page, and the difference between my donation page and others is that I went through and vetted the person who I donate to. And so you hear all these horror stories about, hey, I donate $1 and 10 cents if it gets to where I want it to go. Well, with me, I made sure that every single penny that's donated is going directly to Blade Leg so I can purchase them. Additional to that, I pay for all the work of making the videos of what happens. So when you donate to my page, you're not only going to know that every single dollar is going directly to somebody who needs it, but you're going to get to see where that dollar goes, because I record and I make media out of the gifting process, I call it, right? If I raise $2,000 for a Blade Leg, I'm not just going to give it to someone. I'm going to give it to them and I'm going to make a touching video about it. Why do I do that? So that we can raise more awareness, right? I use those videos, I post them online, raise more awareness and create the cycle, right? Now people are aware, they know that I'm a trustworthy person that you can push donations toward. You donate toward me, you're going to see where it goes. Those videos are going to go out, hopefully get greater viewership every time, and thus bringing in more donations. And so is the cycle, right? And that's what I've tried to create. And so far I've been successful. At this point, we're just trying to grow it exponentially. And I believe this video, this is going to help anyone who watches this and wants to donate to somebody and know that it's going somewhere, and you want to see what that dollar does that you donate. You're going to be able to watch it. Just give me time. Trust me, I'm going to make a video of it.
I'm definitely going to make sure I plug Less Leg More Heart as well as your channel to the best that I can anyway.
Incredible. Tina Hurley is the founder, and she's been incredible. I work with her. She's an incredible woman.
Speaking of Tina Hurley, she was on one of your podcast episodes, and she's a doctor. And
Yeah.
I tell you what, like the opposite of what you went through, where you had the support system, she actually was married at the time and got abandoned like a week after her amputation. I felt that one pretty strongly. So my
She
goodness.
is so strong, and still she continues, to prevent that from happening to other amputees. She's a very strong woman, and she's extremely smart. I've never met anyone so well spoken in my life.
So I also, I guess, wanted to get a little bit more about you, because like I've seen some of your vids. I saw you leg pressing some mad crazy weight with the blade. Do you feel a little bit bionic now with that thing?
Oh, absolutely. Fitness has always been a big part of my life, and I'm certainly not going to give it up. And now that I have that Blade Leg, I've been able to go out and be active again. I was actually able to run a 5K already on that thing, which was tough. That was painful experience, but it felt good to cross that finish line, just to prove to myself. And I also like to make the videos of all of this stuff to show other amputees that it's not over,
Were you ever into running before then, or did the blade like inspire you to give a 5K a try? Because I got to tell you, I hate running, Tony. So
I hate running. I've always hated running. I did it to send the message that, nothing's going to stop me, and that if you, again, are an amputee, nothing can stop you. If you were a runner before, you can be a runner again. I know an amazing amputee named Sebastian, and he does triathlons. He just ran the Boston Marathon on a Levitate Blade Leg.
wow.
Yeah. But no, I was never a runner. I never liked running. I was always very active though.
Well, I feel you on that one for sure. If I'm not getting chased by a lion, I don't see much point in that one. But I tell you what, brother, your story is so cool. Like you're such an inspiration. Seeing you just not letting a tragedy set you back, instead going the complete opposite direction. I really, really pray and hope that your foundation takes off like crazy, that your podcast takes off like crazy. Again, everybody, please make sure you check out Less Leg More Heart if you're interested in donating, as well as Tony's podcast, which is Two Dudes, Three Legs.
So we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram. If you do want to find my donation link page, it's right in my bio on my Instagram. It's at Anthony Cappelletti. Cappelletti is a little tough to spell. It's just like Mississippi, Cappelletti.
So please check out Tony on the podcast. Check out his foundation. Tony, my friend, my brother, it was such a pleasure having you on. I really appreciate you telling us your story and getting to know you a little bit better.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
God bless you, my friend.
God bless you.
All right, gang, that's it for this episode. If you like my content, please consider subscribing to my channel. God bless you guys.